What life lesson did you learn that you will never forget, and when did you learn it? I learned this one as a young man. I was a maintenance supervisor at a resort, and every week we had to shut down a floor of each building in the wintertime to do repairs and refurbishment on all the condo units. One employee complained that he got stuck with painting all the time, so I told him if he was comfortable replacing the hot water heaters that week, he could do that job. So I was focused on all the logistics and normal operations and let him do his thing. The day before everything was to be inspected and put back into service, I discovered that the employee had 4 more water heaters to replace, and he had not put all the previous units' cabinetry back together. The heaters were hidden under the countertop in the kitchen. We had to pay thousands of dollars to a plumbing company to come in and finish the job because there was no way to get it all done in time. My boss in the home office was furious and asked how this happened when we were doing all the other floors on time. I tried to explain that the employee fucked up and didn't tell anyone in time. But my boss explained to me that it's my job to make sure they did their job and not make excuses. I was pissed, but after I cooled off, I realized he was right. You can assign tasks and projects to others, but ultimately you have to be responsible for the overall outcome. This is me. Parents split when I was 4, only grew up with my dad's side. Both parents, grandparents all passed before I was 30. I only have one brother and one aunt, and we barely speak. I would trade everything I have for a normal family life. I dated an ex when I was like 23 for 2 years who had a huge family and got together regularly outside of holidays, and it was best thing I've ever been a part of. When we split, I was legit sad cause her aunts and uncles and the nieces and nephews all eventually stopped talking to me too. For a brief moment I had it. Neutral face. Edit, geez guys, THX for the awards. I wish y'all were here to go bowling with or something. Kind of related to your point, but when you get into a relationship with someone, you must be able to accept who they are with the assumption they will not change. So if he's constantly being late for dates, throwing his clothes on the ground, and lack of communication is something you can't handle, don't assume he'll change these behaviors and become the perfect partner. People will have good and bad characteristics, but you can't justify the bad with the good, you have to accept both as they are. This is why some breakups can be hard, as you are very compatible in most ways, heck maybe even 9/10 ways, but the one way you're not, an example would be wanting children vs not wanting children, is too much to pursue further. Then you'll have someone who is 6/10, but the 4 are minor and you can handle that. When I was in high school, my mom and I took a day to go church shopping in a new part of town. We must have gone to 5 services that day. Some were fun and lively, some were quiet and reserved. But one in particular really stuck out to me for being so kooky. It was October, and the preacher was starting his sermon to the room of 40 people with Halloween is right around the corner. Who here celebrates Halloween? I was the only person to raise my hand. The preacher goes, good. Because Halloween is celebrating the devil, and we don't do that here. At this point, I quickly drop my hand as people give me weird looks. My mom then goes, by the way, it's not a good idea to volunteer information to a group of people you don't know. I learned that I need to wait until I understand at least the basic dynamics of a group before sharing anything about myself. In these cases especially, it's better to be quiet and anonymous than to stand out and be a target. We never ended up going back to any of the churches we saw that day, though. Don't become a walking charity. When I was in my early to mid-20s, I had a lot of friends who were falling on hard times or needed various types of help. And I was only too happy to help. I had the money, I had the time, I would do anything for them. Not one of them repaid, financially, or otherwise. Instead, I was just taken advantage of, left, right and center. It all ended when I suggested a friend of mine who broke up with their partner and had no place to live come stay with me. Next thing I knew, they were inviting their friends over all the time, often without my permission. They weren't contributing a penny to the income of the household. Their new partner soon moved in, and my house basically became a DOS house. And they became a mean-spirited, emotionally abusive asshole who made my life miserable in my own home. Now, I offer advice only. If you need financial support, you can go to the council. If you need housing, you can go to the council. If you want me to provide either of those things, you can bugger off. Listen to your body. For years, I pushed myself to my physical limits. I went without sleep, skipped meals, stress ate, often had emotional breakdowns, etc. You know what eventually happened? Multiple mental illnesses, emotional disorders, unexplained chronic pain, unexplained neurological failures. My body literally started shutting down to slow me down and force some self-care. It's taken years of prioritizing my health, and I'm still struggling with lesser remainders of those issues. Take it from me. Please, please, please listen to your body. When your body/mind is tired, rest. When you're hungry, eat intuitively. When you're stressed, find an effective way to decompress, journal, go on a walk, talk it out with a person you trust, exercise, etc. When you already have too much on your plate, say no. I know it can be easier said than done, but it's a worthwhile investment in yourself. You are worth it. Had a similar experience in high school. The kid was a dick to basically everyone. Highly intelligent and wasn't shy from showing it. Being a big guy, we were playing touch football for PE and everyone conspired for him to be quarterback and his defense would let me go through them to hit him. And I did. Everyone was celebrating and shit and he was hurting like crazy. Mainly knocked the wind out of him. During another PE session, while playing floor hockey, he was getting bullied hard and I started to feel real bad for what I did and remember being almost in tears from it. I started protecting him from then on and we had a good friendship throughout the rest of school. Once I stood up for him, no one would dare to do anything else to him. I apologized to him. He's the bigger man for accepting. 15 years later I still think about those events and what a piece of shit I was. Opened my eyes that the world has enough hate in it and I shouldn't contribute to it. Sorry for the essay and as shown I'm not a wordsmith, smiley face. Somehow my parents imparted to me life was a pie. If somebody got some, I got less. That if I wasn't doing something impressive or winning at something, I was failing. I thought the way to be valuable and get people to like me was to achieve more, prove how smart I was, and one-up them. You can imagine how that goes over. When people predictably didn't like that, I thought it was because I wasn't achieving enough or seeming smart or talented enough, so I'd get even worse. It's hard to undo such an ingrained mindset and to admit shortcomings and share vulnerability, but the gradual life lesson has been not to try to impress people, not to be ashamed of your true imperfect self, but to listen to people, share with them, and be open, honest, and vulnerable. Edit to add, not a zero-sum game about physical or material things, more like attention and emotional things. My parents certainly never actually literally told me that, either. It's just some weird translation my brain did somehow. 2007, my shift at Taco Bell was dead that night, so we were all hanging out outside when a pair of sketchy characters rolled up. They wanted a ride because they ran out of gas. I was about to decline when the GM offered me up. Being that he held sway over my entire livelihood, I begrudgingly acquiesced. Long story short, they turned out to be cracked out of their minds and forced me to drive to a sketchy neighborhood via threat of stabbing, where they robbed me, used the money to buy more drugs, then tried to get me jumped. Luckily they were both out of my car for a second as they were bringing others and so I peeled out of there. Learned the lesson I will never forget when I went back, expecting my GM to be aghast at my crazy story. Instead he was all fake surprise. He knew basically what would happen. He intentionally directed me to maybe get murdered and have my body dumped in a gutter somewhere so that he wouldn't have to potentially deal with a pair of unruly customers for a few minutes. And that was the night I learned that some people will happily send you off to die for even the slightest personal gain. Always make time for loved ones. Time is not on your side. I learned this, too late, after my grandma died. I was always working or studying and said next week I am going to visit grandma, next week I'll give her a call, next week. I saw her at the family gatherings like birthdays and such if I was able to make them, but that's still different than going by her house and spend time together. The moments I did that, it was nice and we laughed, so there wasn't a reason to not visit grandma. Always sweet, and even when I was in the 30s she gave me a bag of candy when I left. One year I was too busy, read selfish, and hadn't visited for months. I wasn't aware it has been months, that was after I checked how long ago it was. September was the last visit and in December she passed away. I couldn't make time for 3 months. Not a single day I could spare a few hours to visit cause career, and I'll go next week. This is more than 10 years ago and it still haunts me at times. She was always understanding and be like, yet I know you youngsters are busy and need to work hard and don't have it as easy as we, even though she went through World War II and needed to walk 2 provinces for food. She considered that they had the easy life. I always thought I had enough time when I was done with insert something here. But always something else turned up. Next week I'll go was the worst thing I had told myself, and I wished I spent way more time with grandma. It made me change everything. I now only work 3 days a week and spend the rest of the time on my family and friends. Make sure to give regular calls and make sure I can be at whatever is needed. Sure, working 5 days a week and having more money for fun is nice, but a bigger car or a bigger house or another vacation does not bring back time. Do I need a Range Rover 4x4 that costs 8 times the price of a Ford Fiesta? No. Do I need a house with 8 bedrooms? No. Do I need time? Yes. Time is all I wanted. Time is what we get in limited quantity. You can try and make changes in spending less or make more money. But you can't make more time. There is 24 hours in a day. Spend them wisely and don't think others have the same time left as you. The biggest lie I told myself was that I didn't had the time. I had the time, I just managed it badly. My grandma was 89, so she was on borrowed time, but it could as well be my wife who I take out for dinner next week but gets ill or an accident. You don't know what it is you have until it's gone. Edit. Wow, thanks for the awards and all the nice replies. Even though I changed my life, I went to bed pretty sad after I wrote this, but this lifted my spirit. Happy it helps some of you and hope you all get to spend the time you want. I worked in an after-school program for a bit. There was a kindergarten girl who was supposed to be doing her homework, but was slacking off and had not been doing well all day. I was kinda hard on her about being off task and she totally went off on me. She said, "You have no idea how hard it is. I have to get up early every morning so I can be at school by 8. I have grown ups telling me what to do all day. Then I come here, and I have more grown-ups telling me what to do. I have to do my homework, and then finally when I go home at 6 all there's left to do is eat dinner, take a bath, and then wake up the next day and do it all over again." It was a good reminder that being a kid can often be incredibly difficult, especially since you almost always have adults telling you what to do all the damn time and have very little to no choice in how your day goes. I did my best to make things more fun and offer more freedom after that. My coworker was obsessed with her job, and pleasing the higher-ups where we work. She was the mother of 3 children who were tween/teenagers. She was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago. When she was first diagnosed, it was in the very early stages. She put off treatment for 5 months to complete a project for our place of employment. By the time she started treatment, her cancer had gone from a stage I to a stage 3. She fought that cancer for the next 4 years, barely taking a day off work, no matter how sick she was. She was dedicated to our employer and being a team player. It was painful to watch all of her duties gradually removed from her, but she was physically and mentally unable to do things as before. She died on a Thursday in April. On the Monday following her death, we were in a staff meeting discussing new hires to replace her. By May, it was like she had never existed. The offices were reconfigured so her office isn't even there anymore, and she is never mentioned at all. What I learned from this: 1. Take care of your health. If you don't have it, you don't have anything. 2. You are replaceable. No matter how much you sacrifice for the sake of your career, they will fill your position without blinking an eye, and never think of you again. 3. Take your time off to enjoy your life and family. Your coworkers will respect you just the same. Not letting those around me decide who I'm meant to be in my career. The stress of extreme poverty and my mother getting cancer when I was 7 pushed me into a constant natural state of survival. I used art as an escape and became extremely good at it. Over time that's what I was told I'll always do despite being decent in other subjects. I even had a test in high school tell me I'd never be anything but a janitor. Whenever I tried out sports or the sciences I got laughed at and told to get back into my art, even by family. It took me until I was 25, on my own away from everyone to realize my career and mindset is up to me. Now I'm 1.5 years away from graduating with 3 associate's degrees in computer science, mathematics, and physics. And soon my bachelor's. Who gives a fuck what others think? My mom died suddenly a month ago. I moved 4 years ago for college, but I had a really strong bond with her, talking to her every day and visiting often. She was amazing, always saying how proud she was of me, that she missed me but was so happy I was living my life and was happy. I loved her with all of my heart, and every time I was lost or sad I would call her and she would always have solid advice and a "I love you no matter what" to say. I had finished my last college exam on Thursday but decided I wasn't going home that weekend because I just wanted to sleep and relax at home. She called me Friday morning, asking how I was and clearly wanting to chat, but I had so many important things to do I told her we'd talk later. Saturday morning I went out and was out shopping and having a good time. I remembered to call but I thought I'll call her back later today or tomorrow. Saturday afternoon they called me to say her heart had just stopped, and she didn't make it. Make time for the people you love, and for the people who love you. Take out 20 minutes of your day. People always say life can end at every minute, but I now realize how sadly true that is. I wish I had talked to her all through Friday and Saturday and gave her all of my time. She deserved it. I love you, Mom. Time goes by faster than we think. I learned this the last 24 hours I spent with my grandma as she was passing from dementia. I made a fort on the floor of her care facility room and talked to her about everything for an entire night. I slept on that cold floor for maybe an hour. I'd never been more terrified to fall asleep and have her slip away. Just us, talking like we always did, except it was just me talking. She was my best friend and biggest supporter. I told her all my dreams and hopes for the next 5 years. I cried. I begged her to say she loved me one more time because I had to race up on an 8-hour drive as she started to slip and wasn't there the last time she spoke. She never did. She never spoke again. I asked her to forgive me for not having a kid before she left. She'd always hoped for a great-grandbaby from me, but I said no. My son is 2.5 now. I told her she needed to go, and I selfishly hoped she'd stay just a little longer because I didn't know what I would do without her. And it's been 4 years and I still don't sometimes. Every time I looked at the clock, hours had passed and she was slipping away faster and faster right in front of me. Those seconds we spent together that last night were not enough, and I'd do anything, to hear her tell me she loved me one last time. To see and appreciate the abundance I live in. And how abnormal it is. Vacation to a third world country and I wanted to have a bunch of sandwiches to take on an excursion. Asked for a dozen, got back you can have 4. At the time I was taken aback and kinda grumpy. How can I not get what I want? Until I realized, this food was cheap and really good, but there wasn't much of it. If I bought a huge amount, people who didn't have much money wouldn't be able to afford the more expensive alternatives for a quick lunch. I did. Here if I buy the last milk of one kind, there's more in other versions for the same price, and by tomorrow the shelf will be full again. Fast food places don't usually run out of food. It's not greedy to buy in bulk, everyone has more than enough. And in comparison to what people earn, food is much cheaper here, and most other things too. Took me a while to see that the vendor wasn't the ass for not giving me what I wanted, but I was, for demanding more than a fair share. Good thing she stood up to the stupid white chick. Thank you, I learned something.